Yes, I used to be in Toastmasters.
So he may have been a Toastmaster master.
Yeah. I was in council.
Yeah, that's the.
Some council I did.
Oh, so
Yeah,
that's what we got.
like Lucy and I have to
Well, no.
see what happens for like me. I am still
I did testimonial.
she was a child and she really like wanted a brother or sister.
And I
Technically has a brother who's 50, so she's a lot older. They never lived together. She has stepsister. She's out there. She's like, yeah, but nice. And then she's like, yeah, Owen the whole world. Or you give Owen and whoever else half. So I was on her. I was on her. She said to her, cool. She said, well,
Hold your mouth just right and
one
dot.
Good.
But anyway, and I did a little bit of teaching at the.
No worries.
Well, I
Yeah, we turned our whole back floor.
Yeah, I started out.
On this side, basically, and then
Very welcome on their
playroom,
TV.
but our living room is
Other
still
questions
much
in the back.
better.
See, we're just waiting on everyone to arrive and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Excellent, thank you. Psychology test.
I know, it did make
Well, my graduate work is in paramedics.
Well, was it like sports?
Yeah, well, it was a lot of it was sports related, mostly sports related, but things like exercise physiology, mechanics and kinetics. And I was at the university.
Oh, no, you want to be able to monitor, right?
Well, yeah.
In Addison, Texas, a store that they had.
I was with the US Coast Guard at the time.
Beverage.
That might be his.
So it's,
Yeah, but they far over.
Oh, yeah.
I was at Ellington,
But I was surprised it's in Texas when they had a car over here. And I was like, oh, I know that's a good beer, but I want to get one that.
how it's just also entropy. I can't imagine what it is, microgravity, for more than a couple of days.
You want here or over there? This might be close to that. You want to sit there? Or this might be. Hold this stuff on there.
And so that was my connection. My profession was.
Here, Jeff.
He isn't he? Oh, yeah. Maybe he's gonna attack really good practice. But I got myself out there, but as soon as I asked him for sure.
Where do you want to sit? One more back?
So I tried to make that necessary.
Someone that will do usually like 1,500 hours, maybe annuals, but like just your traditional, like a lot of places will like refuse to do like, airframe and parking for auxiliary and stuff. But at least that's what we ran into Tucson, but if it's like, it means kind of like having to touch with the starting progress, maintenance.
If you're interested in that further questions based on something like this, we're happy to do that. It's gonna be useful for our government application. Yes. Yeah, we're gonna. Please go ahead and okay, well, we'll be happy to answer questions from that point too, so. Okay. Hey, how are you? Good, what's your name?
Are you doing registered?
Yeah.
Follow me, charge
Yeah.
Thanks for.
We'll see how the million times the note will say. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of literally went to 75, 80. But, yeah, just some PSAs, that's huge.
I'm in the same boat, I just came to Jersey. Yeah. Yeah, and so just finishing my commercial, and so just kind of seeing what's the aviation scene here. It's around the corner, so it's good to just kind of get out there.
At least that has a good job.
I'm flying those out there.
I'm happy for it, like the rest of the country.
Oh, so like, we go to the, because I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's a big brain dump. That's cool.
That's fun to hear. Yeah.
They're just kind of like random. Yeah, they're like, I'm just, back a long time ago. It's kind of cool, it says a lot of it. Yeah, it's definitely family.
I'm like 7,000.
Yes, so we're gonna have these things that pass out and things, but like,
I like that.
you're like, yeah. That's like the biggest thing is trust, and you want to practice it, trust has to learn.
Yeah. So it's like, that's true. It's not like we're.
Jesus is. And, please don't talk to me, like, I'm not gonna be mad. Don't ask questions. Really, they did. I've heard of those. Yeah.
So, past like New York City,
You ask me the same question every time, maybe wrote it
yeah,
down.
you fly the Hudson out, so that's 1,300, and you can just 360 the statue, and it's only like $1 billion.
Yeah.
Because only 1,300 feet, you're below class B.
I was.
Yeah.
Friday from my New York Airfield Resort.
Our commercial,
We're brothers with John, so it's easy.
can't put it in the course and cost it sort of course.
Yeah, especially like TFRs, like around like, it's something that
My case, that's.
there's something like kind of watch out. Like once we go down to hit the DC area, there's a permanent TFR, and then Trump is in and out.
That's the
So you just can't do anything. Yeah, I just moved in here with my girlfriend. Yeah, she works for United. That's how I figured out. Yeah, they're migrating it here.
Technically,
Oh, yeah. Oh, nice. Oh man, so you're just grinding it out, right? Can't be. I would not choose anything over this. remember my first time breaking through the clouds, like on top. Oh, that was just, it was like a cloud. That was the first time, and I just went out. This is sweet. Yeah.
Yes, it's not gonna be. It's gonna be very.
It's like, I never got that out working with us.
So it's the.
So now we're just in the long haul, which is 1,500. Now we're just in the long haul to
We're
1,500.
gonna lock it out. Initially, until we get a piece of train. And then like, I'll go back to everything. Right here.
I'm working on it.
Well, not there, I was thinking Memorial.
That's exactly kind of wild.
They live.
That's gonna tell you what to have, right? You can't just, you don't know what to.
No, this 3 to 5 are going to spend money that just not gonna.
You had a good arm.
You can't talk about it. I think you just, right, the longer you're in it,
That is as far.
the likelihood you're gonna just. Do you
Yeah.
have any family in aviation?
But a lot of my
Oh, yeah, you're that right.
I see this. Me too, me too. Yeah. That's what it is, I mean. Because I've been in small planes like a lot, as a passenger. And then it's just like, all right. Oh, yeah. So we're just like rotating.
No, that feeling. Like, we put it on the bed and we closed the door and our
Yeah.
we're listening to watch the TV show for a little bit.
Honestly, well, like once I finish my college, I know that they're saying they're like, when I look at the website, it's like they prefer CFW line and airline 200 will give it. That's, you know, yeah, how do you get to dual? How many hours do you fly each week?
Not a lot right now.
Okay.
To the mailbox.
Good, good, yeah. I'm really curious to the weather right here, because I know that's, it's just drastically different.
I will say, a lot of the time it's nice, especially at night.
Yes.
But it is just.
The altitude, you're just.
Yeah,
You're not exceeding those. What's the altitude where you're flying zero?
They're actually.
You know, the altitude is like 42 feet. It's like, it's perfect. The platform is beautiful.
Yeah.
Hi, oh, hey.
It's probably like reverse at the big house down here. It's go there in the summer for a couple days, weekends.
Multi-rated yet, or? Yeah. Oh, cool. No, yeah, I heard that just, what, you just fought with 100 days? It saves you on gas, right? Save you a little bit on gas. It looks cool. Yeah, what's your cruise speed? Is it 200? Flying an departure, 2 days ago, I was cruising like 92.
Yeah, it's not even worth it.
No, dude.
Yeah, that's what like annual pass used to be now. But that's what from what I was saying, the non-ski costs and the whole thing is like, yeah, they're making it very expensive. One day so you buy the annual pass, which is like $1,600 or something. Yeah, I think that's expensive. Okay, so that's not, so yeah, it's enough for you to justify to buy it. It's 2 trips. Paid for it.
Which airport do you fly with? Is it the one on the ground corner?
Yeah, I want to see it. I don't actually.
Yeah, because it's how long you been here for a month, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Came by yourself or came by yourself?
I've been down here. It's
Nice.
Oh, they're cool.
Oh, that's smart. That's smart. Yeah, I just literally moved here. Yeah, literally 1 month ago.
Oh, really?
1 month ago today. Yeah.
I did
Text.
too. I
Yeah.
went through second Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
it's my
support? Oh, how's that treat?
So I really, I've done a couple of times, but like, the
Are
people
you
seem pretty
at?
cool.
Yeah.
People like a more like a low-key chill vibe.
I did it actually for being like a major city. Originally from New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Did my
So
CFI
I would hang around like around the city, like double I, and people just I don't know, just something in the air. Yeah, here it's just
This one's not gonna be able to. Yeah.
I grew up in PA, so I grew
Oh,
up in
nice. Or like, was it stuff?
by the East Coast.
No, I actually went to college this year.
Oh.
Older, so I couldn't go back.
Everybody else here, it's either like Washington, Florida,
Yeah.
New York, New Jersey, it's just like
Yeah. How's that? How's that? Is it true? Florida's kind of.
It's good, but yeah, I actually did my private.
that's it. Yeah, but the same thing with Jersey. I think here is just that's where you really,
I think
here's
it's
where you
good
really,
because persons
I think you get.
Right.
Same with the thing. How many times have you fly around around the strawberry
I
field?
really like
And that's
it.
when you make an experienced pilot. It just means you're flying in perfect conditions. You would like either you're more of a proficient pilot.
With the turbulence, like you schedule your steps, you get it, or it's kind of nice. Some people they flex it, like a lot of
Yeah.
our practices.
Yeah, I think it depends
I
on
just
how
like
bad
the,
you
we
want
don't, yeah, it's not
consistency.
no, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, yeah.
Are you thinking about
I never really
getting your
see it.
CFI here? Yeah, we'll show you the practice. That's pretty.
That'd be the goal, is the dream again, yeah.
So
For
you're-
now, yeah. I know, CFI job.
Yeah.
Wait, that's New Jersey. That's my,
Game, yeah.
I had my check
Did
right
that back in New Hampshire.
for instrument yesterday.
I actually, well, I had a job today, but it was only out of like part-time. And like, they were gonna be like
Oh,
couple
wow.
flights a week.
Cultural takes
1 or 2.
Jeez,
days
over
a week.
everyone.
Well,
Yeah.
But it starts at 9,000.
Yeah, we just moved out of here because
Yeah,
my girlfriend just moved out of here recently.
yeah, that's fun.
Move out here.
Yeah.
She says 10,000 there. She does high school now. She's, that's like,
Yeah,
So is it?
fair enough.
Okay, that's EGL.
oh, cool. What is
Yeah,
it?
it's Okay, all right, so at least you're, because you're, what you started.
Sorry.
Then what's the? So let's, yeah, it's just starts at what, this was like 7.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for attending today's Airline Bound seminar. I think most of you registered with Haley, but if you did not, please see her at the table here before you leave for the day. Following the presentation today, we will be giving tours of our campus of the Centennial Airport from 3 to 5, so we'd love to see you out there afterwards. To kick this off, we'll get started with our chief pilot, Ray Altman, and retired YouTube sensation, 40-year flight instructor Mike Thompson is also going to be speaking to you as well. So we'll go ahead and kick it off with Ray and Mike.
Thank you, Brock. Hello, everyone. My name is Ray Altman. I'm the Chief Flight Instructor at Epic Flight Academy.
I reside in the New Smyrna Beach area, but I oversee all of our 9 flight campuses. So a little bit about me. I was an English teacher way before I got into flying, and really loved the passion of teaching, and found my way into flying, and was a student at Epic Flight Academy through private, through MEI, and then decided to get into the flight instruction side of things, and then management, and progress check airman, and now I am the chief flight instructor. So I might be a little biased about Epic, but I think it's a pretty great school, and we're going to identify, whether it's Epic or another school, some key features you're looking for when you're just looking for a school today. So, do you want the video to play?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to start with a quick video. So, airline bound, the whole idea of today's seminar is to give you the questions and details that you need as you pursue that first step into choosing the proper flight school for you. Whether that is to go to the airlines or fly recreationally on the weekends or somewhere in between, every flight school, as we're going to talk about, is a little bit different, and we'll identify what you're looking for to help you make the best choice, not only for the knowledge, but also the financial choices. So a little bit about me, I already told you about me, but I really found the passion for aviation. I never thought I'd be a pilot, and I do truly contribute a lot of that to the structure of the training that I went through. So as we go through this, you'll see. I'll let Mike introduce himself.
Oh, hi everybody, my name is Mike Thompson, and I became a flight instructor in 1979. So those of you who are interested in being pilots, quickly do the math. Nah, I won't put you on the spot. That's 46 years. That's 46 years. I'm a published author. I've also worked as an A&P mechanic, and I tell people I didn't do that just for the resume. I actually had an inspection authorization with the FSDO in Milwaukee, so I made my living once with wrenches, also flying, so I know both sides of the airplane. I hold a master's in education. I remember when Ray was working on his private pilot, and look at, here he is, the chief pilot. So, welcome. We're very, very, very glad you're here.
All right, so the idea today is to fill your brain with that knowledge, and then at the end we're going to have a moment for questions. So if you think of anything along the way, I would encourage you to write it down or hold it in your head. We'll definitely answer any question you have, whether in this group setting or when we do find each other one-on-one. So we're going to talk about the career outlooks. I know that's a huge factor in deciding to become an airline pilot, and you've probably heard about the airline or the airline mechanic shortage. So we'll cover those as well. And any other details surrounding choosing an appropriate flight or mechanic school. So quickly, Epic Flight Academy was built by Danny Perna with a single airplane in 1999, and now we are a well-recognized Part 141 flight school, which will go into the difference between 141 and 61 later in this presentation. We now span across 9 campuses in the flight side, and we have 2 mechanic campuses. So we were originally from Florida, but we ventured out west. We have Tucson. This next slide actually shows them all. There we go. So we got our Florida campuses. We have the New Smyrna main campus. Our next campus we developed is Ocala, Tallahassee. Then we took a big jump out and headed out to Tucson. and filled in the middle with Texas. And then we have Jacksonville, and now Centennial, Colorado, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and St. George, Utah, and soon to be Provo, Utah. And our two maintenance campuses are in what's called Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati Airport, so it's or the Kentucky area, and then also we have one in New Smyrna right across the street from our flight school. So we're going to go back and forth throughout today, and we're going to talk about both pilot and mechanic side. So we'll kind of bounce back and forth. I know a lot of you might be here for the pilot. I know a lot of you might be here for the mechanic. So we want to give you both equal times to hear both things. So fun fact, there's over 4,500 flight schools in the United States, but only about 15% of those are a Part 141 school. Part 141, it's important to understand, is a school that has demonstrated the ability to train a pilot at a lesser amount of time than the FAA general regulations say, through rigorous curriculum. So Epic has had our 141 for about 11 years. It took 11 years for us to earn it though. It's something that takes a lot of time, and that's why that 15% is such a much smaller number than the 4,500 campuses out there.
And about 212 mechanic schools. The mechanic version of the 141 school, you might hear these numbers get thrown around, is 147. That's the regulation that oversees mechanic programs. The FAA approved programs are designed to prepare you for a career in mechanics. If you're not familiar, we divide that up into the power plant and the airframe. So everything to do with recips and turbines both. Then on the airframe side, you go from the skin to the guts, paint and corrosion, to aluminum, rivets, hydraulic systems, electrical systems. So it's a pretty broad knowledge of training that you get as an A&P mechanic.
So first and foremost, are all FAA approved schools the same? The answer simply is no. And it's important to recognize that. So the big thing is, does your school simply focus on you passing a check ride, or do they focus on making you a true experienced pilot? Many of you will experience this in your training, and a lot of you, if you have a pilot certificate in here, knows the check ride is just one step, but the knowledge it takes to be a pilot is much higher than just passing a check ride. And it's important to recognize if your school cares about just getting you through, or if they care about giving you that extra knowledge to make you that aviator, a safe, responsible pilot that can make decisions in a split second when things ultimately don't go the right way.
The same is true for mechanic schools. They're not all the same. The pass rate at a mechanic school is important to the school because that's what the FAA uses to see if we're effective. Now, we go way beyond just making sure that you pass these tests. Okay, so there's a lot of, both in Airline, Kentucky, which is Cincinnati, and New Smyrna Beach, Florida, tons of hands-on equipment. We have enough floor space and enough equipment to get that mechanic student out there really working on it so that they know the why behind the what. And then we achieve the pass rate because you passed, not because we're just trying to get you to the test. Okay, so all mechanic schools are not the same. Reading the book and passing the test isn't enough. So I was just telling you about this real-world hands-on experience. So we do this with, of course, recips, single-engine, multi-engine, and with turbines.
Same thing goes with flight school, kind of already hinted at that. Flight schools are, students are going to be examined by what's called a designated practical examiner, or a DPE, and they are looking for standards known as the Airman Certification Standards, or ACS. And once you demonstrate the proper knowledge and skill set for the ACS, you will earn that specific pilot certificate. But as Mike hinted, we go into the whys and the hows and the what ifs, and that's what makes you a true pilot. As you probably have experienced in your high school or college career, you can memorize a test and get pretty good at it and take the test, and you might forget all that knowledge a few days, months, years later. Whereas a pilot, their goal is to get you as well prepared with the knowledge that you're going to use literally from day one to the end of your career as a pilot. So oftentimes there are different types of flight schools. You might go to a mom and pop flight school. They sometimes call it a smaller school. They might have literally a singular airplane and a singular instructor. There's nothing wrong with that. But then there are also, universities and other larger academies that are accredited and have more of a structure and layout. So we'll kind of get into those today. So first and foremost, when you're trying to choose the proper school, whether mechanic or, there we go, sorry, I'm working on the technology.
We got two controls.
Yeah. So when you go to the flight school, there we go. When you're thinking about what flight school or mechanic school to go to, the first thing you need to think of is, what is your ultimate goal with this? Are you going to be a professional pilot or mechanic working for the airlines? You want to do this on the weekend as a hobby? That's a huge factor involved in this. There's definitely different flight schools that are tailored to that weekend warrior that wants to fly from time to time. And there are schools that are tailored to getting you to that goal as a career airline pilot or some type of career pilot as quickly and safely as possible. So if you're serious about a career, now's the time to kind of figure out, the training school that fits to those goals. I'll let you talk about that.
Okay, so if you're interested in pursuing training, and this is true both for pilots and mechanics, one of the things that you're going to be very focused in on is the cost. How much does it cost? What's the price? And of course you're going to be focused on that, especially if you're maybe a parent or a relative and you're footing the bill, or even if you're not and you're taking out student loans. Well, we're very honest with what the prices are, and those are all in the folder that I think everybody has. But the mistake that you don't want to make is just comparing prices. Our analogy here is shopping for a grill. So you go to Lowe's or Best Buy and you just automatically pick the one with the lowest price. That's not the best way to approach it when you're looking at a long-term career in aviation. To help guide you on some of these items that may impact, we suggest that you look at some of these key items. Okay, the first one is safety records and maintenance. And at any of our schools, you're welcome to come and have a look. I always tell prospective pilots it's a red flag if you ask a school or an airplane operator to look at their logbooks and they shy away from that. Why do you want to see my logbooks? Not so at Epic. We're very transparent about everything. The same is true for mechanics. Education and training resources and records. We have resources available to you, some of which are actually, believe it or not, free. Ray will talk to you about that. The technology in the fleet. Are you insured? And again, kind of a red flag if they say, oh yeah, sure, we have insurance, don't worry about it. Will you show it to me? Will you explain it to me? Well, why do you need to know that? At Epic, we will. That's key. Student culture and administrative support. I'm going to talk later about it being a family culture. I know a lot of companies say that. You can ask anybody here from Epic or any of our students. You really get that feel. You really get a good supportive culture at Epic.
So I would say one of the most important things you should feel when you get to that school is their safety culture. It should be clear whether it's literally written on the wall or they have some type of safety program, but safety is our #1 goal, as it should be at any school. So when you walk into the chief flight instructor's office or the director of maintenance's office and look something like this, you might want to start questioning yourself. Is this the flight school I want to be at? So we don't want to be messy, we don't want to be disorganized. It's a sign that we know they might not be taking other standards such as safety as seriously.
does the person have someone in charge of safety? That's really important. Do they have a safety protocol, safety management systems in place? Do they have a reporting system? These are all very important factors. At Epic, we have what's called a non-punitive safety reporting system. So you make a mistake, something happens, you report it, you're not going to get in trouble for that. And that's the idea. We all make mistakes, and we learn through those. And it's a team learning, team growth learning ability there, because we can actually then teach our other instructors and students, hey, look, this happened to one person, and this could happen to anyone, and this is how we're going to go forward and make sure we're safer.
So, and again, just to reiterate what Ray is saying, one of the ways to promote this strong safety culture is to say, no, this is not punitive. You see, that's looking at it backwards. Because it's safety related, and because we want to promote safety, the idea is the more you tell us, the more safe we can make everyone. See, so there's a 180-degree difference there. And you'll see that at some other schools too, and some other companies, but Epic included. It's by reporting it to us, it makes it known to all of us. It's not, nobody's going to single you out for punishment. That's not what it's about. How well is maintenance documented? Again, going back to the flight board, in this case, maintenance department, and that's to see the logbooks. It's a pretty good indicator about the level of quality. When the books are clear, organized, you can put your finger on the last inspection, of the airframe or the power plant or propeller, what have you. And that's the case at Epic with our maintenance records. And don't take my word for it. Again, you're all welcome to come and have a look.
So some red flags you should be looking for is look at the fleet. Is there, essentially gross negligence to maintenance? Is there oil streaming down the bottom of the airplane? Are the tires bald? Is there duct tape or glossed over windshields? Look at the fleet. If they are maintaining the aircraft, they're trying to maintain a safe culture.
Yeah, there's always going to be oil on the bottom of an airplane. And as a mechanic, you're going to know how much is too much. And let me just tell you right now, that's way, way, way too much. So, little things like that will help you with. There's always going to be some grime across the bottom, that's normal. Bald spots on a tire. Hey, guess what? We made a poor landing, or maybe we were holding the brakes accidentally, and this kind of thing happens. Well, they're training airplanes. What do we do when we see that at Epic?
Report it.
That tire comes off. Yeah, you report it, and we say thank you very much. That's a tire replacement. If you see a flight school trying to continue to run with these tires, that's a red flag. And of course, we all know, as FAA certified mechanics, some of us with inspection authorizations, that fixes everything. Okay, not true, not true.
So when you're looking at the program for education, there's some really big key points you want to be looking for. So a lot of times when you're going to this, whether you're a first generation pilot in your family, or maybe you do have some background in aviation, a lot of times people walk in and just expect everything to go well, and then their instructor or school is going to lead them on the right pathway. And sometimes people find out that's not always the case. So one of the things I would ask for early on is, can I see your structured learning courses? Do they have policies and procedures? Are there uniform policies? Is there policies on what to expect? Are there protocols in line for anything you can think of? So they should have that readily available for potential customers. Do the courses follow a structured syllabus? Is it something that the student gets access to? No one likes to show up to an activity, especially when you're spending hundreds of dollars, and not know what to do that day. Or maybe not even know what you're going to do the next day, because we want you to prepare and be ready as best as you can. So to go above and beyond what the FAA requires, do they offer digital resources for learning? We know obviously we've moved into a very digital world where we're training through not only person-to-person interaction, but also leaving the flight school, going home and studying the night of or the night before and getting ready for the next lesson. So do they offer video training? Do they offer online learning? Do they offer opportunities when you are in person to experience other people training? This is often called backseating. So at Epic, what we allow is you can go to any oral lesson or any flight as long as the weight and balance is safe, and you can tag along. And you can see what maybe another fellow classmate or someone in a course ahead of you is doing, so you get a better idea of what to expect. We even let you do this on what are called progress checks. A progress check is a check on how you're doing, and it deems if you're going to move on to the next stage of training or if you need a little more time in the current training. You can watch and expect and kind of learn what the progress check's like. I know I have test anxiety. It definitely is something that helped me a lot when I was getting to that point where I can actually see someone else under the microscope and see how they do and think about what they did right or wrong, and then self-reflect and kind of plan myself. And the big thing to recognize too is it's not meant to what we call gouge in the career world. A gouge is basically training to what you expect me or Mike or whoever is going to have you do. That's not the goal. The idea is to see what is this progress check like, and am I personally ready for what they had that student do that day.
Yeah, we train you way past the gouge, to the point where we could say, we'd send you to any examiner, mechanic or pilot. Some of you might recognize me from YouTube. I'm not an aviation expert, but I play one on YouTube. These video tutorials, Epic has made the decision not to contract with YouTube, but to pay the price to put those up there for free. In other words, when you watch these, you will not be interrupted by random commercials. Okay, so that's an investment by Epic for you. These tutorials are free. Free tutoring, ground lab sessions are free. Backseating that Ray was talking about. Remember some of those things I told you were free. Here they are. Backseating is huge. Now, I'll bore you to death with a little research from the field of education. We know that if you're watching somebody learn something, that helps you learn it better. Yeah? No? Well, the answer is no if you don't know what you're observing. If you do know what you're observing, then watching somebody else go through it with their instructor is hugely beneficial to your learning. That's called backseating, and that is free.
So ground school is very important. Some flight schools don't offer ground schools. Epic, we do. But the big thing with ground schools, it generally comes as a flat rate you pay during your enrollment tuition. And it's usually, depending on the campus, can be in a group setting or a one-on-one, but it's a building your foundation, which is very important. A foundation on a house or a building we're in right now, obviously, as you would expect, is very important. And the nice thing about a ground school is it allows you to really develop those skills in a formalized manner, usually either before or kind of as you are training, and it will help you prepare for things such as the written test and other milestones you have to achieve along the way. Pilot records, whether we're in flight school, we must maintain clear records that the FAA can inspect at any time. They can show up at our door and say, hey, I needed to see so-and-so's records today, and we need to be able to prove to them how they've been doing in the course, and not only during that time, but we need to retain them. So that way, if they have questions down the line, they can come and ask us. So there's many ways to retain records. In the digital era, we use digital records, so that way they are safe in the cloud, I guess you could say, or available around anywhere in the United States or the world, versus holding paper. We actually do both. We have a records department where we do archive everything paper, but we also do keep it digital as well. So we were just talking about technology in the 21st century. We've moved very digitally. Everything you do, you have basically a supercomputer in your pocket now. You have access to the whole world in your pocket. And the same is true in the world of aviation. Cockpits are changing dramatically. So The two pictures you see up here is what we call your traditional steam gauge or six-pack instrumentation, or the more modernized glass cockpit or avionics. So this is from our simulator actually, so it looks like a real aircraft, but it's a simulation, and it's known as the Garmin G1000. So
Speaking of simulators.
there we go, some more simulators. So moving into the 21st century, does the school you have use simulators? This is huge. Simulators generally are a fraction of the cost per hour as an aircraft. And I don't know if anyone's ever done something challenging where it takes a little time and effort, or if you're a pilot, or you have pilots in your family, they can tell you that flying is a very hectic time, especially when it's bumpy and loud, and your instructor's talking to you, and ATC's talking to you, and it's really hard to now put that procedural knowledge or learn something new when you're being inundated. Our brain is, basically goes into fight or flight mode, and if you are essentially not getting those essential needs, you're stopping your learning. And this could be at hundreds of dollars an hour. And that's stuff that you can do in a simulator at a much more effective rate than just getting in the plane and getting hot and bumped around and getting a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, and to reiterate on those simulators, that's absolutely critical. The cockpit of a small airplane in the air is a terrible learning environment. I mean, let's just be honest. And the simulator really is much more effective, as Ray has explained. And I'll tell you what, I love that pause switch in a simulator. That's so sweet.
The one that's on the screen right now is what is that Centennial do?
Oh yeah, so if you come down between 3 and 5, you'll see this at the Centennial Airport. The same is true in mechanics. We have, as I mentioned, a large enough facility in both New Smyrna Beach and Erlanger, Kentucky, which is Cincinnati, to have small groups of mechanics students, sometimes it's as small as 1 or 2, at a particular station, gaining hands-on skill. Here we see welding, here we see a picture from New Smyrna Beach, and multiple stations where they actually go and work with the actual material. So, what century are the airlines in?
Well, you might have heard of Boom. United is looking into supersonic air travel again. So they are already looking, very far in the future. And they're thinking as soon as 2029 that they might have supersonic aircraft. So are you getting trained for a, present or past aviation, or are you getting trained to succeed in the future? It's very important. And that's why that technology in the cockpit and on the ground is something that's going to be vital to them. So as we mentioned, insurance is very important. We carry it on ourselves, we carry it on our cars, our houses, and the same is true when you go to train. So one of the big things you want to keep in mind is, does the school openly explain and share their insurance policies? That is extremely important. Do they require you to get your own insurance policy? That's generally a sign that they don't carry an insurance coverage that is we would consider acceptable. At Epic, we do not require our students to carry insurance because our insurance policy covers those accidents and incidents that may occur, and we don't make our students pay out of pocket for that. Whereas oftentimes, if you look at contracts that you sign with schools or insurances that you might take, you might still be liable for things. To give you an idea, one of our brand new Cessna 172 aircrafts, about $500,000. So imagine if you accidentally bounce one of those down the runway and now you're on the hook for $500,000. No one wants to be there.
Yeah, and have we ever done that, by the way? No, never. Any flight school that tells you that has got to be lying to you. Okay, just like any other flight school, yeah, we've dinged up a few. run a wingtip into a hangar, bounce an airplane. Now, we have never, knock on wood, had a fatal accident. Nobody's ever been hurt in one of our airplanes, ever. And our goal is to keep it that way. But, have a few been dinged up? I mean, we have to be honest, of course, But well insured.
All right, so this is a very big factor to ask when you go to school, looking for school. Are you a 61? Are you a 141? Do you offer both? Let's talk about the differences real quick. 61 is more of your traditional pathway. So the federal aviation regulations tell you as a 61 flight student, you need to do these things. And it lays it out very clearly. And it's generally going to take around 250 hours minimum to get to a commercial level. It's usually a little less structured. It allows flight schools to do as they need, which is not always a bad thing. 61 can be beneficial for students who need that extra attention, that want to focus on a specific thing that's maybe a little further ahead or they need to go back. So, like I said, one of the major cost savings of a 141 school, which we'll get into, is reduced hours. Reduced hours means a lot of things. It means that the school itself, if they hold a 141, has proven to the FAA that they have the ability through training syllabi known as training course outlines, that they can complete what the FAA thinks a Part 61 school can do in a lesser time, but it's due to the higher level of rigor.
So there's your numbers. 250 on the 61, 160 on the 41.
Our commercial course, not to get too bogged down in the regulations, it's known as a Part 141-55 Echo. And simply put, if you train to the standard and you complete all units to a satisfactory level, which is required before you take a check ride, there's no hourly requirement where you can become a commercial pilot. I got my commercial license at about 120 hours, so you can do the math there. I saved, about 130 hours at $300 to $400 an hour. That's a lot of money.
Good student.
It might take more, but another big thing too is that time that I saved allowed me to move into my commercial or my flight instructor ratings, and then eventually get into the position as a flight instructor training, which then set me ahead of a traditional Part 61 student who has to take a little longer to get to that point. And what we're going to get to here is, who in here is hoping to go to the airlines? Is that kind of your end goal? Anyone in here? Okay. You're going to learn in a little bit that seniority is a huge factor, and the quicker you get through your training, of course, effectively and efficiently, but the quicker you get through it, the better off it sets you up for that long-term career at an airline.
Now, to parallel that on the mechanics side, the pilot 141 school would be like the mechanic 147 school. Very much more structured, saves you time. The pilot side, Part 61, would be the mechanic side, Part 65, commonly known as the apprenticeship. You could get your A&P this way as well. This is just through hands-on experience working alongside and under the supervision of licensed A&P and inspection authorization mechanics. It will take longer. The two mechanic schools at Epic are both Part 147 schools.
Real quickly, the average student currently at Epic from 0 hours to flight instructor, so that's the first certificate that most people start earning money and earning hours at the same time. To go to the majors or regionals or whatever airline you're trying to go to, generally takes around a year. So when you get to finally researching, talking to recruiters, looking at their websites, going through that stuff, it's time to finally visit those campuses. Take a tour, it's very important. And more than likely they're gonna have someone from admissions walk you around. They might even have what's called a student ambassador. We use those often at Epic, which are great. Observe not only what they're showing you though, remember that they're trying to get you to come to their school. That's a normal thing. But look around, look at what the other student body looks like. Are they overall happy? if you have a second to walk away and talk to other students, that's highly important, not just the students they provide.
That's absolute key. If I'm walking you around my school and I keep a short leash on you, and I don't want you to wander off and talk to anybody else, particularly students, huge red flag. When you come to Epic, back when I used to give tours, or if Ray or Haley does, I know that after we orient you, one of the first things out of our mouth is go talk to the students without us. Get the straight stitty from them.
I'm gonna still use that one for a second. Thank you. So another big thing is, can you get to the upper management and leadership at the school? Are they this rare unicorn that you never get to see around, or are they this intimidating, person? And that's not the goal. You want to have what's called an open door policy, hopefully, at the campus, where whether it is you literally walk into an open door and find myself, another manager, student services, someone that's there to help you, or if they aren't available at that moment, can you set up time to meet with them? Or are they that mysterious creature that you never get to see? It's huge. So you want to be able to talk to those people that are making large decisions and managing student progress and things like that. Another major factor is, do they have aviation careers and pathway programs? As you probably know, there's a lot of competition in the world to become a pilot, and having those partnerships, the airlines have recognized, whether it's Epic or another school, that you have a high quality caliber of training, and we want your product to come work for us. That's the same with the maintenance side.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you a little bit about Fiend Aero in Cincinnati if you're interested. But yeah, it's true on both sides of the house. So we would like next to introduce you to Haley. Here she is walking forward. Oversees admissions, including managing our recruiters and our registrars. She assists with marketing, responsible for helping you as a student prepare for airline interviews, resume prep. So she's already completed some of her flight training at Epic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
This is Haley.
Thanks, Mike. Well, I mean, that pretty much sums that up, so I don't need to go over any of that. Just to kind of harp on what they've already touched on, everything they're telling you is true and honest. And before I started overseeing admissions, I was a recruiter at Epic myself. And even before I began my training, I actually looked elsewhere for schools. And these are all of the things, knowing as a recruiter what to look at, I just wanted an honest opinion, and it really reinforced me to feel the most comfortable coming back and doing all of my training with Epic. Definitely take the keys that you get from this.
Keep going.
Oh, thank you.
Just let me know what's coming.
Thank you. Definitely take what you guys are hearing today and apply it to any school that you go to. As much as we're telling you how great Epic is, this is true generally at any school. So I want to give you guys kind of a pulse at where aviation is at right now in 2025, moving forward. We had the pandemic changed aviation quite drastically overnight. We were all at Epic during this, and we all watched as a result of what happened with the pandemic. If any of you are kind of up to par with where we're at, there is still a shortage. So I'm going to go ahead and move that and press play real quick just to show you guys.
Pilot shortage. There's a critical shortage of airframe mechanics. You need a pilot to fly your plane and a mechanic to make sure it's safe. And right now, America facing shortages of both.
We'll have to hire a couple hundred pilots between now and then.
Regional airlines, that feed the major airlines are going to be desperately looking for pilots.
So just a little blip there. I mean, it's in the news.
Pilot shortage. There's a
of an actual shortage. I've got some stats here that I'm going to share with you guys today, and I'll try to keep it less numbers and just more real big picture for you. But the 2023 to 2043 aerospace forecast actually says that the airline pilot shortage is going to continue for years to come. I've heard back and forth that right now people aren't hiring, but I do want to at least let everybody here know that it's not going away. The problem is still persistent. I'll get to this a little bit more, but a couple of the things that really affect airlines, both mainly for the pilot right now, I'll touch on the mechanic here in a moment, but there is a retirement age for a Part 121 airline. So any airline you've really mostly flown on, American, Delta, United, they fall under what we call Part 121. They have a retirement age of 65. And whether or not that changes to add a couple of years, what that does is creates a number of retirements at each airline every single year. So with those retirements, plus an aging fleet, these airlines are actually expanding their fleet, they're putting in orders. The airlines have to balance these numbers drastically to continue to encourage their own growth as a company. As you can see, Airbus has actually delivered 766 commercial aircraft, and I'm not sure if anyone's aware of the Boeing shortage, but we work with Aviation, and they have driven home with us how much they're waiting on Boeing to deliver aircraft so that they can continue their growth. So I'll get to Aviation in a minute here and other airline partners. And then in general, after COVID, there was a humongous peak in travel. And that's actually staying pretty high in demand at the moment. So it's projected to still grow 4.3% annually over the next 20 years. So airlines are looking at all of these numbers on a constant basis. They're keeping up with everything, and really this is kind of helping drive what they're going to hire. So I've seen lulls in hiring. I wouldn't let that discourage you if you're seeing that airlines are pausing right now. The growth is still there and the demand is still there. The same goes for aircraft mechanics, except the big difference here is that aircraft mechanics are needed right now still. So is anybody in here interested in becoming an aircraft mechanic? Excellent. We need more women in aviation. So I will say, right now, they still need to fill 12,000 aircraft mechanic positions annually right now to fill the pace with the demand of the growth of the airlines. So not only do we need pilots still, even despite the current pauses in hiring, but right now, we drastically need aircraft mechanics. As you can see, 739,000, that's a big number, of aircraft mechanics are going to be needed over the next 19 years. That's a small window of time. So in general, working with your hands and working as an aircraft mechanic, it's not seen as a viable career for many people. And so that's one of the reasons, I'm going to get to that in a second here, but it's a lack of awareness on the career path and perceived barriers that are holding people back from becoming aircraft mechanics right now. So we're here to basically kind of shed some light on that as well and give you guys an idea that even if pilot training doesn't work, there's a lot of reasons why someone might not be able to become a pilot. There's an FAA medical you have to get. I've known people who've been unable, unfortunately, to become a pilot, whether it be financial constraints or the medical, who have actually decided to become an aircraft mechanic. It's still a wonderful career in aviation, and you are just as necessary, if not more necessary. Without the plane to fly, pilots can't fly them. So, as I mentioned earlier with the retirement age for a pilot, there's not necessarily a retirement age for a mechanic, but they're all right now currently in their 40s, 50s, if you look at the big numbers, and that is going to eventually lead to retirements. So they don't track them the same way they do at the airlines, but we know for a fact the growing number that we're going to need, and I'll let Mike talk about FEMA a little bit here too. As far as, you know, in terms of career growth and what you're going to make, I'd like to kind of give you guys some insight on that too. I'll start with the A&P mechanic. As of April 1st, aircraft mechanics in the U.S. are earning on average $86,000. That's definitely a fantastic salary for somebody who's becoming an aircraft mechanic. The drive for mechanics has helped raise that number, and we're very happy to see that they're getting compensated in a very good way. There's also sign-on bonuses for new aircraft mechanics that you'll get. So they do a lot of incentives on the front end for you guys to make sure that, you know, when you're going to them, you're going to want to go to them. And the pilot does the same thing. I think the pilot salary, it's a lot more dramatic of a growth. I'm not sure if he mentioned it earlier, the seniority number, I'm about to touch on that, but The cool thing about a pilot career is you can look at just about any airline and they have all of their salaries published on what you're going to make for the rest of your career. Obviously this is slated to change based on many factors, I'll get to that too. But as of February in 2025, the average first officer salary is $97,000. And they also offer sign-on bonuses. The clips that I have here, just so that everyone knows, you can view right on our website. These are straight clips from our website. So at the end here and in all of your folders, there should be QR codes that will take you to our website. We can touch on that in a little bit too. But it's very important to see regionals. You're going to start off as a first officer, move to a captain. And so I'll give you a couple. In fact, I'll give you Republic here, starts off at year 1, 93. Year 6, you're at 96. But the average upgrade to captain right now is probably between 2 to 3 years. So you're going to be a captain much sooner than that. And year 1 captain at Republic, 145. So you're going to probably be at like 93, maybe bump to 96, so on and so forth. And then you're going to be at 6 figures pretty quickly in your career. I do want to also note A&P mechanics. You're not limited just to your one position. There's management, there's corporate, there's a lot of ways that you can grow and also make 6 figures right as an A&P. Maybe you want to manage a team of A&Ps. You can become an IA. You can also get more specialized training. I'll touch a little bit on this in a moment as well. Real quick, are any of you guys familiar with the average pathway to the airlines as a pilot? So let me break it down, and I always like to use the staircase analogy. Everything that you do in aviation is like you're taking a step to get to where you want to lead yourself. So we used the foundation example earlier, and it's so true. You want to make sure that you have a strong foundation when you're going through your training so that when you're going up the staircase, you're not struggling. So phase 1 is going to be training. So you have to get to the commercial license in order to fly for hire. Some of you guys might not want to, and that's fine too. Some people want to just fly general aviation, but training is where it all starts. Either way, you have to go through the license training to become a pilot. Once you become a commercial pilot, that's going to open you up to the next stage, which is going to be gaining your flight hours and experience to do whatever it is you want to do professionally. So a pilot who is coming to Epic is going to need 1,500 total time. There are some exceptions that I can touch on in a moment. In order to be considered for employment at a regional airline. This does not mean that you're limited to that 1,500 hour window. I'll get to that in a moment as well. Phase 3, most people end up at a regional airline. Regional airlines, if you guys don't know what I'm saying what I mean when I'm saying regional, think of a plane that houses a little less people, such as a Delta Connection, American Eagle. Those are regional carriers that are flying, but you don't know that you're flying on a regional because they're branded for the majors. So they're smaller planes, usually a jet of some kind that's around 90 to 100 people. And then you're going to start there. Again, you're not just going to go straight from a Cessna 172 to a giant plane. You have to build your experience and your knowledge, and you have to get in some time under Part 121 before you can go to a major, which again, following the majors, those are going to be airlines such as Delta, American, but it could also count things like JetBlue and Spirit, planes like that. So that is the traditional, like the most normal career path for a pilot at the moment in time. But I do want to just touch on some alternative pathways. So I talk to students at Epic pretty much once a day. They come to me and they say, Haley, I really have no clue what I want to do. I don't know if flight instruction is for me. What other pathways can I do? So we have an alternative pathway with a Part 135 carrier, which is a charter airline. So they can actually take you as little as 250 to 500 flight hours with your commercial license. So some people may not feel suited to do CFI, but right now the most common pathway is certified flight instruction. There's a lot of perks to becoming a certified flight instructor. You're going to be, and I'll actually let Mike touch on that. He's going to be the expert in that. You can also do paying out of pocket to time build. You can also banner tow. You can do crop dusting. You can, again, become a first officer maybe for a smaller airline, skydiving operations. mapping and aerial surveying. Typically, these airlines are still going to require a decent amount of hours. They're usually going to be lower pay. You're not going to be getting that regional salary that I just showed you guys. So, you know, it comes with its own set of challenges. Now, to touch back on what Ray had mentioned earlier, when you get hired at an airline, you're going to receive a seniority number and kind of like a place in line at this airline. And it's really important that you focus on your seniority number and you know, put it at the forefront of your focus if you are looking to go to an airline. It's going to determine everything for you. So upgrades, if you're going to be slated for a captain promotion, and then also for your trajectory to the majors. So a lot of your regional carriers that we work with, they actually have a pathway that takes you to the majors. So you have it set up for you. The sooner that you start at that regional though, the sooner you can get to that pathway. And there's a couple of reasons that this is super important for someone. When you choose a flight school, as Ray mentioned, that has an accelerated training pathway, it's going to allow you to get through your training a lot sooner, and then that's going to allow you to then start your career a lot sooner. I've had people ask me, should I get my degree first and then start my flight training? And my advice is personally to always get your training out of the way first. Become a full-time student. Put all your effort into knocking out your flight ratings and making sure that you do it the right way and that your attention is focused on this so that you can be a safe and competent pilot. And then from that point, we have everything else slated for you, especially at Epic. But you know, at that point, if you don't choose Epic, then you can look into online courses, degree pathways, and things like that while you're flight instructing or you're time building and gaining your hours of experience. If you're looking at a school, make sure that there's not training delays. You know, that can help hold you back. There might be more students to plane resources. Perhaps your instructor has too many students and they can't get you on and fly you long enough, or more recent or regular enough. These are all things to consider when you guys are looking at a flight school, or in terms of the A&P training, you want to make sure that the school has enough resources to teach the class, as Mike mentioned. Really, really important that you're getting the hands-on training that allows for you to get through that. Of course you can.
Thank you. So a little bit more on seniority. Think about, you know, you start whatever job, you're brand new, you're in a probational period. Get stacked today. You're in this probational period, you know, you probably have minimal time off and minimal extra abilities. There. So, you know, as a newer employee, you don't get all the perks and things like that. But as you work more, your vacation time occurs and you have a little more lenience, you probably get better benefits and things like that. Think of that as your seniority number. So we meet with a lot of captains, and we're going to talk about this later. We're partners with the United Aviation program, which being in the backyard right now, you might have heard that program before. But we meet with some of their captains, and one of them lives in Florida right by our campus, and he works a whopping 8 days a month. And he makes $400,000. And it's because he's in like the single digits seniority numbers. He's very high up. He lives in Florida. He flies to Newark, New Jersey, or LaGuardia, I forget, and then he flies to England and back. And he has a day layover in England, and he comes back. He goes back to his family. And when you get to that level, your seniority matters a lot, because what you end up doing is it's called bidding for your schedule. So they generally say, hey, next month is June. So right now, pilots are bidding on June or maybe even July. They're saying, here are the days I want off in July. The higher your seniority number is, the more likely you're going to get those days. The lower it is, the more likely you're going to be put on work during those days, or you might be put on what's called a reserve. And a reserve is basically you're at a base, whether it's what they call short call reserve, which is usually they call you and say, hey, I need you to fly a plane in 2 hours. And they give you a minimum of 2 hours to get to the airport and be ready to fly. Or they'll have long call reserve, which is usually about 12 to 24 hours. Regardless, no one really likes to be on call that much, but when your seniority level is low, you generally stay on call. But as you move up, you'll be able to work those 8-day-a-month, work schedules. It's a very, very important thing. So the earlier you get to the airlines, the earlier you recur that seniority. Yeah, so Yeah, so setbacks, thank you, to your training, whether it's, there's not enough aircraft, not enough instructors, the maintenance is causing the planes to be down, so on and so forth. Those setbacks delay that number. And those, what at first doesn't seem like a big deal, it actually adds up at the end. As your parents may know, as you're nearing the end of your training, or your career, I guess you'd say, that's when you're earning generally the most money. And that's what's gonna be recognized as your retirement starts to set in. So if you don't get to that, you know, as early as you can, your seniority level is lower, your pay is gonna be lower, and when you get to that last time, those last couple of years, you'll see that. We're gonna talk more about that in a moment too. Yep.
So I also want to touch a little bit here on an A&P mechanic and where you can use your skills. So a lot of people just think that an airline is the reason for becoming a mechanic for the airlines, but that's not the only way that you can utilize these, the training and this license. So you can do airlines or general aviation. So, you know, I've known people, we know people currently who work out of a hangar, and because they're an authorized mechanic, they're able to do maintenance. So if you want to work on general aviation, you can do that. You can work on private jets. You can work at a FBO or even like a flight school, like our team of mechanics. They've been with us, how long would you say, our team of mechanics?
We have some that are going on like 15 years.
Yeah, 15 years. So they've built a career out of working on Epix planes. So, you know, if an airline is a little bit intimidating, or perhaps the schedule at that airline doesn't line up with what you want, you're not limited just to the airlines. You've also got aerospace manufacturers, theme parks. You know, if you've ever ridden on a roller coaster, the chances are it's been worked on by an A&P mechanic. Those skills are useful on a broad spectrum. Cruise ships even. And then you've also got defense contractors, helicopters, government agencies, and then of course, maybe you have like a knack to want to share your education, like someone like Mike, and you can become a teacher with everything. Mike, do you want to touch on these skills a little bit?
Well, only so much to say. Just to reiterate what Haley was saying, I'm going to give the mic right back to you. But imagine, as an A&P mechanic, you get trained in these areas: physics, mathematics, technical publications, hardware, which sounds boring, but it's not. You have to think about all the different types of hardware. Cable tension, fluid lines, fittings, electricity, basic electricity, advanced electricity, antennas and communication systems, corrosion control, sheet metal, riveting, wood, welding, painting and finishing, different types of reciprocating engines, generators, alternators, turbine engines, propellers. Now, if you take a look at some of these pictures on the previous slide, imagine in this big cruise ship, there's big generators and turbines in here. You may or may not be aware. Corrosion control, that's huge. In here, proper type of hardware inspection, technical publications. So these skills, these employers know cross over. That's the value of the A&P outside of just airplanes.
Yeah. And I'm going to also use Mike as another example here. You can also become an A&P while also maintaining the goal of becoming a pilot. I think I can count 6 off the top of my head that I know at Epic in general who are both pilots and aircraft mechanics. I actually heard from one of our instructors, he was teaching a student who was an A&P, and he said, it's funny because I was teaching him all of this information, and at the same time, he was teaching me stuff.
Do mechanics make better pilots, or do pilots make better mechanics? Okay, I'll leave that out there for you. One of my first A&P students back in the 90s went to work for Honda at a Honda test facility. Talk about a cool job. Yeah.
That is a cool job. So again, just driving home, the skills that you're going to learn as an AP, they don't have to just stay with airlines. So for obvious reasons, I'm up here because I just want to, you've toured the school, you've looked at all of the stuff that we've just recapped with you, right? And you feel like you're getting yourself to the finish line. Well, now what? Are you going to have proper guidance at the school? So one of the few things that I really want to kind of touch on, this is actually a picture of our team of recruiters and registrars, and a little student services as well. But there should be somebody that's available to you, to speak to you, to give you clear information, pricing, process information, and share the course details with you before you're deciding to join. One of the big red flags that I like to point out is there should never be a single ounce of monetary pressure to get information from a school. You shouldn't have to have a loan to hear from anybody. You shouldn't have any reason why they can't at least answer questions about the training or show you around the facility. The biggest part though is there should be no pressure to move forward with the process until you're ready to join. This is a humongous financial investment, whether you're doing the pilot or the mechanic training. There's a lot of things that obviously we've just gone over for you to research. Take your time. It's really important that you do your research before you start. We've seen people who, they've done a little research, they chose a school, and they feel that they've made the wrong decision, and they've come back to us. And that's okay too. Just make sure that you're taking your time and that you're not feeling pressured to move forward and hurry with your decision. It should never turn into that when you're deciding on a school. Of course.
If you choose a school, you decide to leave, that's an important thing, it happens, but also look at the contracts that they make you sign. We've had students show up at our door that are out of tens of thousands of dollars because they've signed a contract saying, if you quit, we get your money. So please look at that fine print. We do not do that at Epic.
No, we do not. And then one other thing I'd like to point out, he mentioned it earlier, you're touring the school. Make sure that this person that's showing you through is understanding of the school, and they're just not somebody that's been tasked with showing you through that day. So I've known people who've been on tours with just a flight instructor who's like, here's our plane, here's our room. Just make sure you're getting the right information, especially if you're going through and you're taking the time to choose a school. One other thing to consider is if your school that you're looking at offers you any sort of financial aid towards your training. So outside of the cost, do they have loan partnerships or programs that will allow you guys to apply and pay for your training in a structured manner? Because not everyone just has the cash ready to do the training. We actually have a couple of financial partners that I can touch on. Just to name a few, we work with Sally Mae on the private side, so you can get a loan through them for both our pilot or our mechanic training. Hello, hello, and welcome. We also have multiple loans with other lenders that will allow you to get through your training. We also do offer the VA GI Bill for our 147 mechanic training out of New Smyrna Beach. So there's a lot of ways that you can pay for your training. One of the biggest questions we get are scholarships. So Epic is proud to discuss our scholarship contributions. So I'm going to give you a lot of information here. If you have any questions after, please feel free to ask me. I'm happy to delve in more. But in 2025 alone, Epic's actually going to be giving away 16 scholarships in the amount of $140,000 out of our own pocket to students. We really like to contribute towards youth interested in aviation on both sides. So this is not just to one side or the other. On the pilot side, we have a $20,000 pilot scholarship that's actually in honor of our Captain Judy. She was our ground school teacher for a very long time. She was, we call her Big Red. She's basically our mom, and we're very, very happy to put this in her honor, but it's towards your pilot training, and you can use it at any of our campuses. We also offer $5,000 training towards pilot training, and there's one per location. And then we have a King Air Nation Foundation, and that's going to be for another $5,000, and that's also able to use at any campus. So that alone is 11 scholarships that I just mentioned for pilot training. We also give out 5 other mechanic scholarships. One is for $20,000 at each of our main campuses in New Smyrna or Erlanger, Kentucky, which is out of the Cincinnati airport. We also have a $10,000 King Air Nation Foundation, and then another $10,000 for 2 at each location. So that's a lot of money to give away there. We also contribute to other foundations in terms of scholarships. So outside of the ones that we give out as a school directly, we also contribute to the ones below here. So we have a $20,000 one with the Heritage Foundation. $45,000 we do every year with the Astronauts Memorial Foundation because NASA's right up the road from our main campus in New Smyrna Beach. The Black Pilots of America we give $20,000 to. Women in Aviation, we were just there. We always give a Women in Aviation scholarship as well towards the aircraft mechanic training. The Latino Pilots Association, we give $35,000. There's a lot here listed. So we're very big on our contribution, not only to the education of a student, but also just to make sure that they can get this education started. So make sure you're asking if the school that you're looking at offers any sort of contributions to you. Most of you have been given a folder, and for those of you who may have come in a little later, I will give you guys folders, but inside and also here, there's going to be the scholarship flyer where you guys can scan the QR code and apply. There's also, outside of just EPIC, additional scholarships that you can get through organizations such as Women in Aviation, AOPA, OBAP, EAA, NDAA. There's a lot out there, so we really do encourage you to look at scholarships and see. In the last few years, there's so many out there that I really couldn't name them off the top of my head, but we've seen a lot more, and they're allowing you to go to any school of your choice for the most part. So make sure you're doing your research on this because there is a lot out there. Another thing to consider when looking at a school is their education partners. So I told you guys I would touch on this a little bit. So after you've finished your training, whether that be pilot training or the aircraft mechanic training, does the school that you're going to offer a way to further that education? One of the big things that we see is, I want a degree to follow, and so we've actually got 3 partners on our pilot training side and 2 on our aircraft mechanic side that allow you to use your training with EPIC and put them towards a degree. Our main factor here is Purdue Global. We have them on both sides, so I'm going to highlight them for a moment, but if any of you have any questions after this, I'm happy to go into depth. Purdue Global will offer you a BS in Professional Flight or Aviation Management on the pilot training side, and your training with EPIC, you send your records over to them, can give you transferable credit hours. Now it does vary on that side because your training at EPIC depends on what courses you go into, how many you complete, so we don't have a number for that, but it does go towards a BS. And if you're not sure that you want to stay a pilot forever, or perhaps your FAA medical may lapse, there's a lot of reasons that you might not get to stay a pilot. You should always look into a degree as a backup, and if you keep it in aviation, that's even better. You want to touch on that?
Yeah. That's a really good question, or a point. You may or may not have heard, but most major airlines, actually I think all of them now, are not requiring a 4-year degree. But they still say we encourage a 4-year degree, for multiple reasons. Let's talk about safety and security real quick. If you were to get ill, or for whatever reason you no longer be a pilot, you have something to fall back on. And also, a lot of times pilots start at the airlines and they get into management positions, or they want to do something above that, and having a major is going to help them essentially do that. So it's still encouraged, it's not required, but it's a good backup plan or a great plan for further growth at the airline you end up at.
And just to touch on that, they do look at higher education. If you're sat next to 12 other pilots that are all in the same amount of hours, what stands you apart from them? A degree could be that thing. On the aircraft mechanic side, same concept. It goes towards an AS, an Aviation Maintenance Administration. So you'd be able to really take that to new depths. Like he mentioned, it can help you with management growth. It can help you on the corporate end. There's never a downfall to furthering your education. The cool thing about Purdue is all of this is online. You can do it, on the flight side. If you finish your training, you've done your time, you've gotten through the training, now you're a certified flight instructor. You can start credits online, right, as you're instructing. So, a typical 4-year degree could be cut down. You're not only going to get credits towards this degree, but let's say you're instructing for about a year or 2 before you hit the airlines. That's going to be a year or 2 that you've now knocked down towards a degree. And as Ray said, maybe you don't need the degree to get to the airline right away. Maybe the majors want to see one later on. Right now they're not, but it could help you stand out when applying. So by the time that you're at an airline, 1, you're not going into a crazy amount of debt. You'll be making enough money to pay for your training at that point and the rest of your degree. And then To touch on the other side, you know, if this is something where you really do see yourself growing as an A&P mechanic, this can also contribute towards that. You're going to get 30 hours from our training for our 19 months as an aircraft mechanic. The door did that earlier, that wasn't intentional.
Right. Everyone's awake now.
Yeah, now all three of us are going to touch on this a little bit. I'll touch on the main ones that I know of, and then I'm going to let them expand. We do work with United Aviate. I'm going to let Ray expand upon that in a moment here. We work with a lot of pilot hiring airlines, companies, things of that nature. We have a couple of like direct, like main airlines that we work with here, and I've listed them. We've got Republic Airways, PSA Airlines, Breeze Airways, Southern Airways Express with Mukulele, and then we've also got Commute Air with United Express as part of the United umbrella. Commute Air, United Express, Republic, PSA, those are all regional carriers that I was mentioning earlier. So you might not see those names on a plane. You'll see United Express on the side of Commute Air's plane. You're going to see Republic, they fly for American, United, and Delta. They're a regional that flies for all three. So if you're like, you know, I really don't know what major I want to go to, Republic might be a good opportunity for you, and then at that point you're kind of opening your door to all three. PSA Airlines, they fly for American. They're a direct subsidiary, which means the seniority that we mentioned earlier, it's a trajectory to land you at American Airlines. They have their own pathways. Breeze is actually one of the ones, like I mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily a legacy carrier that you're familiar with, but it's a Part 121 that you can go straight to with your 1,500 hours should you meet your requirements. We have a pathway that actually allows you to do that with them. They fly brand new planes. They're a brand new airline actually, so I like to describe them as on the same wavelengths as JetBlue mixed with Southwest.
The owner of Breeze is actually
Former JetBlue.
Yeah, former JetBlue. Yeah.
Southern Airways and Mukulele, that's our Part 135 that I was mentioning earlier. So that's a charter airline. You don't have to, you know, just go to the certified flight instructor pathway if that's really something that you don't feel that you're fit for. We do have a 135 carrier that can take you with lower hours and help you get your hours, and it's turbine time. A good friend of mine and Epic alumni, she's actually featured in our brochures. Her name is Renata. She went through the training here, she went to Southern, and she now flies for Southwest. And she was able to really skyrocket her career in a really fast way. She didn't spend much time in between. She got to go straight to them, thanks to her time as a pilot at Southern. On the aircraft mechanic side, we have Fiend, United, and Boeing as some of our main hiring you know, companies. United is actually pretty big in hiring our aircraft mechanics. And on the bright side for the aircraft mechanics, they know when you're going to graduate, and you may get an offer letter at least 6 months ahead. We just, I'm going to proudly plug, we just had a team of our aircraft mechanics competing at a mechanic competition, and all of them received offer letters just by being there at that competition. They're not yet certified APs. Job offer immediately. They know exactly where they're going, and many of them are going to United. So. I'm going to let Ray touch on United Aviate a little bit more, and then Mike, I'd like for you to talk about P a little bit more too.
So United Aviate is a program set up with United, of course. It is a pathway program that, as a commercial pilot, once you've earned your commercial, so I'll use my example, I'm at 120 hours, nowhere near that 1,500 hour mark. I can apply at the United Aviate program, do an interview with them, and if that goes all well, you'll then be offered to be in the Aviate pathway program. From there, you are now basically monitoring and getting your hours, and once you get to 1,500 hours, you're going to get a job at one of their 121 carriers, the regionals. So you know, Commute Air is a good example. I'm terrible with the other ones, you know more. But
Commute Air, Mesa, and GoJet.
There we go, Commute Air, Mesa, GoJet, JSX, which is a 135 carrier, Tradewinds, which is also 135, which is the unscheduled air carrying, so it's charter stuff. You'll be starting as the first officer there, and then as you earn the amount of hours you need to move to the captain, basically once you've committed 1,000 hours as captain, you will be offered a job, and they're currently saying once you've been offered that job at United, so within about 4 months you'll move from that regional to the United Airlines world. What is cool is if you interview as a commercial student, basically as a freshly branded commercial pilot, you are only being asked questions that a freshly branded commercial pilot's gonna know. You're not being asked airline questions and high-level questions. You do one interview, and that's your one interview. As long as you follow the pathway, you end up at United, never have to interview again. An important fact about this is anyone in this room, if we were to apply at United in general, you have 2 times in your lifetime. So you can interview as a young pilot and potentially get a job offer or conditional job offer through the Aviation program as young as a commercial pilot. So that's huge. But yeah, the Aviation program is a really good opportunity, especially in this region, because United, as you know, is right down the street at the Denver International Airport. But they're all over the United States and really the world now, and they're fastly growing. They're currently slowing their growth, like many of them. As you've probably seen, Boeing and Airbus have kind of slow growth, but once Boeing and Airbus get their act together, things are going to accelerate quickly. So, Mike, you want to talk about some of the partnership programs on the maintenance side?
Sure. I think everybody's familiar with both Boeing and United, but all 3 of these companies actually have made offers to our A&P students before they've even graduated. I mean, does that give you some idea of the demand? So what is FEAM? Federal Education, Aviation, Fred and Everett. I'm glad you laughed, because that's really what it is. I don't recall their last names, but it was 2 men, Fred and Everett, I can't recall their last names, Aviation Maintenance. We started this aviation maintenance company, the 2 of them, out of the back of a truck in Los Angeles in 1999. They started contracting to do maintenance of heavy aircraft. I'm going to step on the camera here. Anyway, there's, you may or may not be familiar, A, B, C, and D checks that you do on commercial aircraft. Try to find a spot. Or, if you can hear me, you could probably hear me without the mic. How's the volume in the back if I just project? Can you hear me? All right, so they started doing maintenance on these commercial aircraft right out of the back of their truck in Los Angeles in 1999, and eventually Fred and Everett's Aviation Maintenance, everybody just started shortening it and calling it FEAM. FEAM now has a major facility at the Cincinnati International Airport, which is actually in Airline, Kentucky, just across the river from Cincinnati. And they partnered with us, with Epic Aviation in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, and they said, look, we need mechanics so bad, would you be interested in literally building a school on this airport? We'll support you, we'll partner with you, we'll help you, and we want, first crack at your grads. And of course we said, absolutely we would do that. So this is why we now have 2 campuses to study as A&P mechanics. So if you go and visit the site in Cincinnati, you will see this airport, just hangar after hangar, huge commercial aircraft. The airlines may fly an airplane in contract for that maintenance. You'll also see UPS airplanes, FedEx airplanes. This is FEAM Aero. They're very well known for contracting heavy maintenance on these big planes. And we have a direct connection to them. So it's pretty cool to have these partnerships. You might need the mic, I don't know.
I can try and speak loudly. Can everybody hear me?
Project.
Okay, we're good. If they can hear me in the back, we are fine. So just to tell you guys a little bit more about FEAM, particularly at our CVG campus, Erlanger, Kentucky, they care so much that they have started a sponsorship program. You get through your first 3 semesters, your first year of training, and you apply right when you begin, and they will actually pay for the last half of your training, which is your power plant portion, 2 more semesters. So if you don't get the scholarship, you have the access to also the sponsorship program for anybody in here who might be interested in aircraft mechanic training. Huge opportunity to that, and again, just to touch on like how badly they need mechanics. And just to touch a little bit more on the pilot hiring partners, we have more airlines that are not listed that also come to our campus. We have MESA that will literally be here next week, and oftentimes they're there to meet with you and create the cadet connection. So an airline may have a cadet program. A cadet program is something where you can apply early on, just like Aviate. Maybe you're at private, instrument, or commercial, and depending upon their requirements, it allows you to get your foot in the door and learn a little bit about the company, and also just kind of have a trajectory from the training level to that airline. So cadet programs are becoming more common in terms of how the airlines are approaching hiring. They want to know you from the training level, they want to understand your personality, and they want to watch you train so that they know what they're getting into when they're hiring you to become a first officer, and then eventually captain, and then pushing you to their, majors. So we work with a lot. These are just some of our main ones that we work with. So if you guys have any further questions after this, please feel free to come and ask me. I deal with most of the airlines. We both deal with Aviate, but Ray would probably be the best person to speak with about Aviate. And then, that's it for me. I'm going to give it back to Mike. And I'm going to let him do his closing sentiment here on final things that you should be looking for when choosing school.
Okay, all right, let's bring up that other PowerPoint. So, how many of you interested in being I'm going to try to stay within the camera range here. Professional pilot or airline pilot, I know some of you. How many of you who maybe have a different career already say, hey, I just want to learn how to fly an airplane? That'd be pretty cool too, right? Yes. So I want to share with you something that you must look for in a flight school. We have suggested many things for you to consider. Okay, and I'm not an expert in all of these areas, but I am an expert in one, and that is education and training. Of course, you can find me on YouTube. You can find my book on Amazon. I've been a flight instructor for 46 years. I hold a master's degree in education from the University of Wisconsin. Teaching and learning is my passion. Helping teachers be better teachers is what I do. That was my mindset when I created the CFI training program at Epic in New Smyrna Beach in 2017. Now, with the support of some really fantastic colleagues, some of whom you've already met, I created a go-to program for those wishing to become flight instructors. So why am I telling you this? Why is this important? Because the key for your son or daughter, or for anyone interested in learning to fly, is quality instruction. Please consider this just for a moment. Out of all the pilot careers that are out there, and I'm talking banner towing, EMS in the helicopter, military, maybe eventually an astronaut, corporate pilot, jet pilot, flying the C-130 for NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, through hurricanes, being an airline pilot. Think about all those careers, and I'm telling you that everyone comes into piloting through a CFI, a certified flight instructor. Now, with the exception of Orville and Wilbur, and that sounds funny, but it's true, with the exception of them, and really just a handful of others around the world, every pilot came through a CFI. And I hope you recognize these three. I know most of you probably do. Just in case you don't. That's Neil Armstrong, who went to Purdue, by the way. Sullenberger, Charles Lindbergh. The quality of that initial instruction is critical. There was a time when I trained almost every CFI that we hired at Epic. Well, that was when New Smyrna Beach was our only flight school, and as you can see very clearly, we've grown far beyond those days, including Centennial Airport here, where we hope you'll all come and visit us at 3 o'clock. But here's what I want you to know. The core value of being a high-quality flight instructor is what I instilled into those first several years of CFIs trained at Epic. And that is what lives on in every CFI that we hire at Epic, at any of our locations. The idea of family, safety, high-quality flight instruction, that flows through Epic at all of our sites. That's the legacy I've left at Epic. It's baked in, like chips in a cookie. You can't pull the chips out of a chocolate chip cookie. The same idea here. That quality is baked in. The idea of being an excellent flight instructor. So, what about ground school? Important? Yes. Time building? Important? Yes. Maintenance, safety? Of course. But the quality of that CFI builds the base of everything that comes later in that pilot's career. All of it. There's a lot of one-on-one time that happens in flight training right here. This is the G1000 equipped 172 airplane. A lot of one-on-one time there. The quality of the CFI and the quality of that teaching-learning relationship is critical. The quality of the resulting foundation upon which the entire rest of the career is built is priceless. A top quality CFI is what you must look for. And that is what Epic Flight Academy offers. I've worked hard to make sure that's true, and I know Vic has, I know Ray does, I know we all do. So from here, we would like to introduce a couple of our partners. Unfortunately, at last minute, for reasons beyond their control, our representative from Southern, who wanted to be here to talk to you, missed a flight connection and could not get reseated. Okay, and our rep from Commute Air, unfortunately, she's ill. So we're so sorry, it's beyond their control. They wanted to be here, but they're not. We also wanted to introduce to you one of our former students who, come on up here, is very experienced with this idea of shop around and research the school first. And so, tell us your experience with that.
Yeah.
Jeff Paul.
Jeff Paul. If there's one thing I can definitely tell you that I'm an expert in flight training, it's finding a flight school. I'm from Fort Collins. I went to Colorado State University, met my wife up there, and I think around late 2019, early 2020, I decided I wanted to go to flight school. It was something I always wanted to do as a little kid. And then following high school, I was a senior in high school during 9/11. I wanted to do it following high school. That wasn't a very good time to do it. Second time I tried to do it and had some money to put together to do flight training was 2008. Also terrible time to do that. Third time, the pandemic rolled around. And I said, you know what, I'm just gonna go for it this time. I'm just gonna do this. And, you know, sitting around the house like we all were, I was just like, I'm just gonna try flying, see if I even like it. Got my first class medical, found a flight school up in Wyoming because nothing was open in Colorado yet. It happened to be a Part 141, and kind of going to what Ray was saying and Mike was saying, not all of these schools are created equal. And I can attest to that. And it's not just that, you know, maybe they're bad, but they're kind of geared towards certain types of people who learn in a different kind of way. So I went up there, did a little bit of flying. It was kind of a tough environment. It was at a military base, and learning how to do landings as a student pilot in 23 knot gusting 30 winds was pretty rough. And you know, I was driving about an hour up there. I decided I kind of wanted to take a look at something else. So a few weeks later, actually, after I started, Colorado started opening up. I went to a Part 61 school up at the Loveland Airport and started doing my training there. Much different experience. You know, up at the 141 school, they gave me an online class to take. And then, as going to Mike's point, I was being taught how to fly the plane in the air and not on the ground. So when you're starting out especially, there's a lot going on the plane. I mean, even just if nobody's kind of chattering in your ear, just keeping the plane straight and level is hard enough. And then being told to, you know, hey, look, this is the power setting you need to be at, this is the flaps, all this stuff is just flying in my one ear and out the other. It just wasn't really a great environment for me to learn in, but a lot of people went through that and did well. But at the Part 61, I kind of told them my experience there, and you know, we had a little bit more ground lessons. He gave me a little bit more instruction on, you know, what I'm supposed to do to set up for different maneuvers, but still there wasn't any real structure to what we were doing, and I thought, honestly, I'm kind of I feel like I'm a big guy, but I thought I was going to enjoy that environment, but I really didn't. And it wasn't the environment that was helping me learn and become a better pilot. And I also knew, just from kind of being in the school a little bit, that I was really being trained to pass the check ride. I mean, everybody went to the same examiner. They told us exactly what we were going to be tested on, and I was like, yeah, that seems pretty easy. But I decided that wasn't for me, and kind of after I took my written test, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a little break and move on and see if I can find something that was a little bit better for me. Spent the next year and a half or so calling schools across the country. I looked at my Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, I'm that kind of guy. Maybe a lot of you are as well. I got to almost 50 different schools that I called, all over the country. California, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, you name it, Texas, Nebraska, all sorts of schools, large, small, and in calling those schools, schools, I found that there was sort of a criteria of what I was looking for. And I'll kind of get into what that was in a bit. And by the way, I don't work for Epic. I actually volunteered to speak today because I think this is a really important subject for you to learn. And maybe some of my criteria might play into your decision making here. So, and really kind of the big thing that you want to pay attention to here is flight school is a really big investment for you. Financially, emotionally, physically, it's everything. I mean, I remember in my senior year in college, I took 21 credits and had 2 internships going at the same time while supporting myself. It was a lot. Nothing to me was more challenging than going through flight school. Also, probably the most rewarding experience I've ever been through, both personally and professionally. I've learned so much about myself going through that, and a lot of that plays into me eventually, me going into Epic, and I'll kind of get into the culture bit here in a little bit. So yeah, I started the training during the pandemic, and flight training, and really just in life, failures, you can look at them as being positive experiences or negative experiences. And that's something you'll definitely learn as you go through flight training is you do fail. And how do you respond to that? And who do you have there to pick you up as you go through that? I'm glad I went through the experiences of the Part 141 and the 61 because it really helped me develop a criteria to find a school. I spent a long time doing this. I was driving my wife absolutely bonkers doing this. And it took me so long to finally find the school, but when I did find Epic, it wasn't through any advertising. It was just through Googling and finding schools in different, down in Florida. I could not believe all of the things that they offered at the school, and it literally checked off every ad. And then when I actually went there, it just continued to check off the boxes. Another thing is, I work in sales. I run a business here in Littleton. And, I get people trying to sell me stuff on stuff all the time. But there's a lot of over-promising and under-delivering. Epic literally undersold themselves. And when I got there, it was just a much better experience than I had even hoped for. I was just telling Ray was my instructor for commercial single engine and my commercial multi-engine add-on. And he was absolutely fantastic, but so were the other instructors that I had during my private pilot and my instrument rating. Those guys and gals are all buddies of mine now, and that just kind of lends to the culture a little bit. But here's my criteria that I started out with. To Mike's point, price is really important. Also, financing is really important. I'm not independently wealthy. I needed to get loans for this. And I mean, I went through every creative option that I could think of. I started a business to help me get through get through flight school. And when I found Epic, I was like, man, they have Sally Mae loans, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal. I was looking at doing a personal loan. If you don't know anything about personal loans or any other type of kind of creative loan, like a HELOC, pulling equity out on your home, you're going to have to start paying that off immediately. But a student loan, like Sally Mae, you can defer the payments following your graduation up to, what is it, a year, 2 years?
Technically it's a year for your training, and if you stay in training, Sally Mae allows you to prolong that as long as you're still in training, and then it's 6 months after graduation before they make you start making your payment.
Yeah. And yeah, no matter what direction you go following getting your certifications, you're probably not going to be a millionaire. So that's super helpful in at least kind of getting going on the track to start paying your loans off. So the fact that they had that option was absolutely fantastic. When I was also researching this, I was thinking, hey, maybe I can work and pay things off over time, but to Ray's point, seniority is really important. But also, the time it takes to actually train, if you're paying as you go, it's going to take you much longer to go through training. And from somebody who had to kind of go back and forth between Colorado, I drove back across the country 6 times, moved my family, my newborn son, across the country with my wife to go live in New Smyrna Beach. And it would have taken me a very long time to do that, and if you're not training regularly, you definitely lose your proficiency at that. So for me, it made sense to kind of go on an accelerated track, fly. I don't know. There were some weeks I was flying every single day. Sometimes it was 3 or 4 times a week. The other important part for me was following the completion of school. What were my options? And did the school have what did they offer me in terms of airline opportunity and airline relationships, CFI opportunities? Because there's some schools out there, I can tell you, that they have career CFIs there, and getting hired there following a CFI is really difficult. And so then you're having to go out other places to go get hired, which is not a big deal in some cases, and a lot of people do that at Epic, but they do offer that opportunity as well. Just across the board, Epic was just fantastic with everything. Haley in the back helped me design my resume and counsel me in the career world. HR, because my son was, I was living down in Florida without my wife while she was pregnant. So a lot of sacrifice kind of went into this. They allowed me to move back here, hang out with my kid, get everything put together, and then moved us down. And they were just extremely gracious with the entire ordeal. Maybe that's not going to be your experience, but you might have something like that. Life happens to all of us. We never know what's going to happen. And if you got a school that's forgiving like that and gracious like that, it really lends to a really good culture. So both of those are big check-offs for me. My goal in this entire career is to get to United Airlines. I'd like to go fly for Southern Airways Express. I'm still kind of mulling over possibly being a CFI over here in Centennial, which is kind of funny because I now live 20 minutes away from Epic and I'm driving across the country. Wish you guys did that a little sooner. And really, having those two things nailed down, one of the other points that was really important to me because of the sort of deficiencies that I had experienced in the 141 and the 61 world was the quality of the education. I can't even tell, I would have gone to Epic alone just for their standardization manual. Not being taught in the plane and knowing exactly what I was going to do, because you go up, when you start flying, you learn a maneuver, through lots of maneuvers in private. And then in instrument, you go up and you're learning the instrument environment, which is completely different. Knowing that if I was going to fly with Ray, Mike, Brock, whoever, that the standard was the same for each person. Whereas in the 61 world, or the 61 school that I went to, I flew with several different flight instructors, and they all had different standards for how they were doing everything. When you're that new to flying and you're being taught, hey, this is actually the wrong way to do it, but you've been doing it for the last 10 hours, it makes things a little bit difficult for you. So having a standardization for that is fantastic, and just having it laid out. How am I going to do this maneuver? I can sit in my chair, close my eyes, and practice exactly what I was going to do going up in the plane. I mean, I still actually look at it. I went and flew with a buddy not too long ago, and I opened up my manual, and I was like, hey, we're going to practice these maneuvers, and I don't need to do any of that stuff, but it was being proficient, and having that was absolutely fantastic. That's just one resource. I mean, at Epic, and I know I'm kind of maybe selling Epic a little bit, but I'm a little biased because I had such a great experience. But these are some things you want to take a look at as well. You have your one-on-one ground with your instructor. You have ground school in a classroom setting. Then you also have, you guys still using Glime? Yep. Yeah, Glime online ground school course. And then you've got Mike's videos on YouTube, which he's kind of a staple in my house because I had those videos playing all the time when we were making dinner and all that, just to kind of drill that stuff into my head. That's not even it. I mean, there's, like they're saying, there's tutors you can go talk to. You can back seat. I mean, I don't know of any other school that offered any of that stuff. And, you know, becoming a pilot is a really multidisciplinary career. You're becoming kind of a meteorologist. You're learning about electricity and mechanics, aerodynamics, and, you know, physics, and so on and so forth. You're learning how to talk on the radio while you're doing 10 other things, and it's a lot. And so the number of resources you can, you know, the fact that there are so many resources at Epic makes the environment a lot easier to kind of learn all of these subjects. So yeah, I really can't speak to enough of that at this point. But safety. This is a fun one because if you've ever been to a Part 61, there's a lot of words that people call those airplanes. If you kind of do enough research, you'll find out what those are. And I mean, the planes I was flying at the Part 61 school, those planes would never fly at Epic. You saw that picture of that bald tire, and you can see the wiring in the tire. I was flying on multiple planes with that one, with both tires, and you're like clunking down the runway and flopping around. And, you know, having to pull the yoke all the way to your chest because they didn't want any pressure and you had to high-speed taxi to keep all the pressure off the nose gear. None of that would have literally flown at Epic. The safety culture in itself, I mean, I never really had to report anything. I think maybe we had one thing, Ray and I, but knowing that there was a safety manager that you could go to and ask questions or report things or, you know, was absolutely fantastic. Safety is really kind of paramount, especially having a kid. I was like, I want to be safe in the plane, and I can't tell you how safe I felt in those planes. Because when I first started flying, I was pretty freaked out. I'm scared of heights, I still am. I feel more comfortable flying in a plane now than I do standing on my wife and I kind of joke around about this. I can't stand on the edge of like walk up to a window in a skyscraper. I feel less safe than flying a plane because I know how the plane works. And flying in a plane at Epic, where I think the plane is it 322 Agapapa?
233 here.
233?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I showed up, I think the oldest plane there was like 6 years old, which is absolutely fantastic. I couldn't have found that anywhere else, and I definitely didn't find that anywhere else at any of the schools that I went to. So that alone.
Let me ask you about safety for a second,
Yeah,
Jim.
sure.
So aircraft safety, that's huge. The age of the fleet, that's huge. And how do you feel about the quality of your instruction?
I mean, so incredibly thorough. And
Thank you. One of the things I teach these instructors is there's two types of safety. Okay, the one we're talking about, I call it physical safety, that's the airplane. But as an educator, there's also what we call psychological safety. That's how does your instructor make you feel? How does your instructor treat you? Is your mind in a safe place so that you can learn? Did you find that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, no question about it. When you get an instrument, you're flying under the hood, which means you're wearing these goggles and all you can see is your instruments. You have no idea really what's going on outside. And my flight instructor was, I mean, my life was in his hands really. And I felt absolutely safe because of just how competent he was and the way that he talked, Ray, you know, you can see I kind of talk really quickly. These guys were talking very slowly, making me feel really comfortable with what I was doing and slowing me down the plane. And it speaks volumes to kind of what Mike was saying. So my last point is culture. I run a business, I got employees, culture is a huge point. Both among the students, among the CFIs, safety culture, which we kind of already touched on, and then the administrative culture, which I've already kind of touched on as well. The students, you know, I don't know what it is about Epic, maybe it's just coming from the top, but you know, when you do fail, being able to talk to some of your buddies in class or otherwise, everybody at Epic just seemed to really be on the same page with lifting each other up when you were down. And you know, if you failed a check ride, a prog, or kind of an end of course test, there was always somebody there you could go talk to. I know I had some failures, and I spoke to a number of different folks, and they helped me study to kind of get back on course. And same thing with the CFIs. I remember my very first day at Epic, Kareem was sitting there watching me, and he ended up being my instrument instructor. And I'm sitting there just like going over the checklist, back and forth, going over the standardization manual. And he's like, man, you need a little help. You want to kind of go over a few things. I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't even know who this guy is, but brought me out to the plane, showed me around the plane, walked me through doing the checklist a couple different times, and we kind of practiced doing some maneuvers before my actual lessons with my actual instructor. I saw that kind of thing over and over and over while I was at Epic. So really just, I can't say enough about it. You know, really take what you're learning here from these folks and create your own criteria of how you're going to find a flight school, because it is really important. This is a really big investment for you. Yeah, that's kind of all I got. So.
Thank you.
Real quick, Mike, I just want to interject about Kareem. I'm glad you brought up Kareem.
Thanks, man.
Kareem was my commercial instructor, and he's a darling, and he just got hired through Aviate at Commute Air. He literally was on their new hire in his Hawaiian shirt about a month or 2 ago. So just from start to finish, it echoes through.
So, folks, here's where we hand it over to you, okay? Let me stand in front of the camera here. So here's where we hand it over to you. We want to hear from you. I'm going to field questions, and many of which I'm sure I won't be able to answer, but we've got the bomb back here. That's the business operations manager, Haley. We have our chief pilot. Come on. Brock knows a lot of stuff. Of course, I'm available. So fire away with questions. If these don't work with your cell phone from where you are, you know, when we wrap up, come on up here and snap these for more info. Okay? All right? So fire away. First question will be from... Yes, sir.
Hey. Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
From New Jersey. Just moved out to Colorado.
You're from New Jersey?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm currently working on my commercial, and so I'm looking into the CFI route. So I'm just looking right now I'm not really in a school, with the private airplane club. So becoming a CFI is it's all on you. But I'm looking to a school to see if you guys have any standardization or recurring training throughout your CFI career.
Throughout your career. Epic would be an excellent place to come just for the CFI add-on.
Okay.
All right, recurrent training, which by the way will be required by the FAA as a CFI, comes from multiple places outside of Epic. And I can recommend two off the top of my head, AOPA and American Flyers.
Okay.
To add to that though too, sorry.
But, no, so Ray can answer this probably better than me.
It's a requirement by Part 141 that every year the flight instructors annually have to be reviewed and retrained if needed. So we do that every year. I literally just did 4 a couple days ago because it was the end of the month. So,
if you come to work for it.
Yeah, I ended up working at Epic.
Yeah.
And so our instructors go through an emergency sim. We put them through the ringer, make them sweat a little bit, but we're not going to fire them. We'll retrain them, make sure they're safe. And then same with the plane. We put them in a real plane, make sure they can teach still. And what I like to do is develop their teaching skills. Like I said, I was an English teacher. I really like the teaching part. So what do you need help with being better? We're not perfect. Oftentimes
teach one type of student for a long time, you don't get to teach another student for a while. So I say, hey, we taught these students a while, do you want to practice that? So, yes, we do recurrent training at it.
And by the way, we just started this program. If you're a CFI for us, yours truly actually is traveling to our various flight schools to do a little 2-day review with our instructors to keep that quality up. So, what else? Piloting, mechanics. Yes, ma'am.
How long has the Centennial operation been running, and can we go another time for a tour?
I'm gonna hand that one to Brock.
I think we're a month in, maybe. Katie here is our first student, so we're just getting started at the Centennial location.
Our first student, Katie.
But yes, you can work with us. Scan the code, talk with Haley. We're giving tours anytime that's convenient for you, other than this afternoon. Yeah.
Which is true at any of our campuses. I mean, if you just show up, you'll probably get a tour. But if you contact them, absolutely, they'll set up a time that works for you. And then after we turn you loose, talk to the students.
We do highly recommend you schedule it though, just because oftentimes the people who are there are also teaching. So if you do show up, we just don't want you to miss out if they're.
And be disappointed, yeah. We don't want you to be disappointed. Vic, you have a question? No? Anybody? Who else we got here? I am going to introduce you. All right, while you're formulating out, there's a question.
I got one on the finance side of it.
Finance.
The Sally Mae and scholarships. How or when do we need to start applying? My son's 16 and a junior.
Okay, Haley?
Yes. He can apply as early as today for our scholarships. Thank you. Thank you. He can apply as early as today for the scholarship. We announced the scholarship. We closed the scholarship application as of October, and then we announced the scholarship winners in November. So he can start now. It applies to juniors and seniors in high school for most of those. So yeah, that's fine. As far as Sally Mae, typically you want to apply for the loan as you're starting to actually be able to enroll and start the training. So we can have a further conversation on when you're looking to start, and I can kind of guide you guys on when you actually look at getting the loan part.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
See, I never could have answered that. I'd have to have made that up. And then Brock, you got a question?
I do, and that question led to this one. So what are the eligibility requirements for on the mechanic side and on the pilot side to start the program?
That's me again. Okay, so I'll start on the pilot side. The pilot side, especially at our Denver location, you have to be 16 in order to start your training. You do have to have your first, well, not your first class, an FAA medical. Are any of you familiar with the FAA medical process? Okay. If you already have one, excellent. If not, I'm happy to walk you through that a little bit after this. You can always come ask me, or you can ask any one of these people that we all have FAA medicals. You'll need a valid FAA medical. You'll need funding for the training. We'll go and evaluate ID. You're going to need either a passport or you're going to need to provide a driver's license or birth certificate combined. And then basically we just get you started in terms of a start date. You're going to go through an enrollment process with us with a recruiter, and you'll be onboarded by a registrar. And then you'll meet with your site manager, which we'll introduce on your first day to kind of go into depth more on what to expect, who your instructor will be, things of that nature. You will also need to be in uniform. Both our pilot and our mechanic schools do have student uniform, so we'll go into that with you as well. On the mechanic side, you have to be graduated high school, so you do need to show us a diploma, and then you have to give us a valid form of ID, so a passport or a driver's license and birth certificate. And then we do also have the funding with Sally Mae, Ascent, Ziltify, GI Bill on the mechanic side, so you can apply for those as well. On the pilot side, we have Sally Mae and Stratus Financial as well. And then we have a few more that we work with that they can give you partial loans. They can't give you the full amount like Sally Mae or Stratus can.
And then they're not really age specific on the mechanic side for starting training.
No, you just need to be finished with
But to hold the license,
Yes.
you have to be 18.
So typically you'll need to be around 17. Our program on the mechanic side is 19 months, so by the time of graduation, you'll probably be right around the age that you need to be in order to
Get your certificate on your birthday. Bam!
That'd be pretty good. You can start training as early as 16 as a pilot. You do have to be 16 in order to solo for your private pilot license, 17 to take the check ride, and then 18 for instrument and beyond. So we can help you with availability that will help space that out if you did want to get started sooner.
Then 23 to become an airline
Yes.
transport pilot.
At the 121.
Yeah, the 121 carrier. So that's like going to United or the regionals. So a lot of times we have CFIs that are 20 and they have to work for a few years before they go to the airlines.
Our 135s can take you between 18 and 20.
And the smart ones time it.
They do.
So they hit the ATP at 23, get hired right away, and guess what's a big deal about that? Seniority number. Smart.
You have your hand raised?
What's that classroom days and hours, what does that consist of with you guys? Is
So
it
for
like
the
a
pilot
standard
training-
9 to 5 or?
Not necessarily. So for the pilot training, you're going to be scheduled based on availability. So we can work with that. We have a full-time option where you're scheduled around 5 days a week, at least twice a day. Or you can go under the flex, which allows you to choose date and times that you're available. Not to get too technical, but you have to be available based on the course that you're going into. For example, you can't work a 9 to 5 and come train at night for your private pilot. You need to have visual reference and fly during the day. But if you're, needing a couple days a week because he's in school, or if he needs to go to school and then come to training, we can talk about that and we can work around that, and we can talk about a way to pace it for his training at the Denver location.
Yeah,
That's no
daytime
problem.
would be like week.
On the mechanic side,
Yes.
if you're interested, it's 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at both campuses,
4 days a week.
Monday through Thursday. So you get a 3-day weekend.
Every single weekend is a 3-day weekend.
And we do offer flight training 7 days a week, so the weekends are available.
Okay, good.
Yeah, 363 days a year, I believe.
I think 364. I think.
4.
Yeah, Christmas is our only day off.
All right, so that's it. Santa Claus gets a break and then that's it. So I want you to think up some more questions. In the meantime, I want to bring Jade LaBelle up here. I know she's very humble and maybe a little shy, but I will tell you this, she's an excellent student and now an outstanding flight instructor who trained and taught at Epic, and most importantly, will be our site manager.
That will be, she is,
I mean, well,
the
is.
site manager.
I mean, is our site manager here at Denver at Centennial. Jade.
I'd just like to introduce myself to you guys, especially if you're considering the Centennial location. As stated, I'm the site manager for the location, and I did my training through Epic and worked as a CFI with the company at the main location for about 2 years. So I was really excited to get the opportunity to expand my skills and grow, see the company grow into all these new locations. But we'd love to have you, and hope to see you at the tours if ever you guys are interested in seeing our location. Our whole staff is going to be there, and if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them for you, especially if it's Centennial specific, since that's what I'll be training.
And oftentimes there's questions that you have that you might not want to ask in a group. If you come to Centennial, you can get any one of us privately one-on-one and ask all the questions you want. So please show up down there, scan these codes. While you're thinking of more questions, one other thing from Brock: how do I get to Centennial?
I'd have to use my GPS. I'm new to the area as well.
Put it in your phone.
Yeah, we do have,
It's on
here
the
we go.
south side of town.
So, we are in Apple Maps. If you use that, Epic Flight Academy, it'll come right up. But 8201 Interport Boulevard, we're on the 2nd floor. So you'll come in the main door, take a right, you can take the elevator or the stairs up to the 2nd floor, and we'll be there to greet you. So.
Good. Thank you. Question?
How many instructors do you have at Centennial?
We are 2 currently, and we're looking to expand as the number of students grows. Ideally, we're looking for about 3 to 4 students airplanes per instructor there to have that kind of ratio.
In previous campuses, we generally do one airplane, one instructor as it grows. Tucson, for example, has 4.
We have 5.
5, and I think 8 instructors.
So the ratio is a little different there, and it really depends on the students and their availability, how we assign resources to each campus. Like Haley mentioned earlier, we have a lot of part-time students as well as the full-time students. So the full-time students are training 5 days a week. If we've got those types of students at a location, it's going to justify sending more airplanes. So we're kind of monitoring those things. So there isn't a perfect number necessarily for students to airplanes, but we do like to keep the student to instructor ratio closer to 3, especially if they're full-time students. So as we continue growing this location with more students than just Katie, we'll be adding airplanes and instructors as necessary. So we're kind of forecasting that out now.
Can't you get a 1 on 3 instead of 1 on 1?
10 out of 10.
We just took shipment of 4 more aircraft. They should arrive today, actually, from Kansas. Yeah, straight from the Cessna factory. So like you probably heard, we like the new aircraft. So we basically fly in a little bit of New Smyrna, make sure all the kinks are worked out, and then they generally then get spread out as needed.
Another thing to put on your Jeff Hall spreadsheet of research, okay? How many flight schools, and I'm telling you, 46 years, training airplanes lead a rough life. How many of these schools have brand spanking new 172 trainers straight from Cessna? So just research that. All right, question in the back.
Yeah, does your Centennial location offer the mechanics training?
Negative. At the moment, I can't speak to the future. Wait a minute, I have my crystal ball. Right now, for the mechanic training, you must come to Cincinnati, Airline, or Kentucky, which is Cincinnati, or New Smyrna Beach, Florida. And I know you got a lot of one-on-one questions, so please bring those to Centennial. Any others before we go?
Check in with anyone that might be on the YouTube Live have questions?
Oh, yeah, YouTube Live. Any questions there?
Let's see. Nothing's popping up here, so.
There should be a comment section.
Yeah. Everyone's quiet on YouTube.
They're all out looking at my videos.
Yeah, it looks like we're good on YouTube unless anyone has anything.
Well, if you're on YouTube and you come up with a question, you know how to contact us. You can contact Haley through the website. So please do that. Please don't be shy. We're happy to honestly answer questions. So to wrap this up then, I hope we see you all at Centennial. We'd like to wrap it up by giving you all a little round of applause for having the wherewithal, the brains, and the guts to come on out here and learn about this. Wait. One more question.
What would be the realistic career opportunities for someone like me starting very late in life, having airline a retirement age of 65? I'm about to turn 50 next year, and I will be starting from zero.
Let me field that briefly, and I'm going to hand it to Ray. There are a lot of careers as pilots where you're not required to retire at 65, and you can fly some gorgeous high-end equipment. I'm thinking corporate jets. Even to go to an airline, how long does it take to go all the way to a major captain now? Maybe, I don't know, 8-10 years. But a great career as a first officer, and then moving on into corporate. Ray or Haley, you have more for that?
A good example is one of our flight instructors. He's 70 and he's still flying for part, I guess it's Part 91, which is like a private jet. He got in with the company. The CEO needs to be flown around, and he flies around the country regularly. But really, I mean, a lot of people ask that same question, and as long as you can get to the airlines, you start making that money. There's a lot of opportunities that show up along the way too. But of course, limited to 65, but there are plenty of options once you have some time and experience under your belt that would let you do a lot more after that.
Well, let's say you're 50 and you could be an FO, on jet equipment at a commuter in what, 5 years?
3 or 4
Three?
years if you're really aggressive.
3 to
with
5
it.
years?
And then you can go and fly at that regional and still become a captain, pay towards your retirement. You can still have a fulfilling career until you hit 65, and then at that point, the sky's the limit.
Parlay
Keep your
that
medical and continue
commuter
on.
time
Yep.
into a corporate job.
Part 135 corporate. You can also come back and teach. Mike, do you want to tell them about our team at New Smyrna?
Oh, yeah, let me mention that quickly. Before I do, remember your medical is critical. So you have to maintain a first or second class depending on the type of flying that you're doing there. And so, eat right and exercise, that's my pitch. Keep that medical. Our team at New Smyrna, when I came on board in 2017, with the exception of Vic, who was then our chief flight instructor, and maybe 1 or 2 others who were on their way to the airlines, we only had 1 2-year flight instructor besides myself. And one of the things I did was I wanted to build a cadre of these experienced career flight instructors, but not squeeze out our graduates who would come and work for us as flight instructors. So, put simply, we have the best of both worlds. We have a cadre of maybe a half a dozen highly experienced flight instructors who kind of form the core of what I call our Top Gun team. And then we have many of our graduates who come and work for us. And the beauty of that is they can bounce off each other with questions, etc. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Another career too, the same gentleman who's 70, he's finally getting out of flying a private jet, and he's working for a simulator center. He's making, I think, $400 an hour.
So, oh yeah, that's true.
Not
too.
flying, but you're still teaching people how to fly planes. I don't know how United works, but United has the largest training facility in the world, and it's right down the street. So I'm sure there's opportunities in the flight simulation side as well.
Flight safety is right down in Melbourne. So if you're a real sadist, that's perfect for you. You get to sit in the back and torture this pirate. It's awesome. I love doing it myself. I'm not a sadist. All right, other questions?
We got one online, Mike.
Yes.
I think it might be more for Haley, but
Okay.
they're curious about how the process would change for pilot or mechanic if you're not a U.S. citizen.
So that's a great question. Any non-U.S. citizens, we offer a training visa. So you would go through a process where you would then go through and show us proof of funding and all of the same documents I mentioned earlier. Bigger difference would be that your education does have to go through a verification process by a myriad of approved companies through the U.S. government. Once you can prove that you can attend EPIC through all of those documentation that I just mentioned earlier, so again, that's a valid passport for our foreign students, proof of funding, proof of education, and your medical you can get when you're in the U.S. with the understanding if you cannot get it in your home country. However, we can send you a list of approved medical examiners throughout the world. And then we issue a M1 visa, and just to clarify, the M1 visa is strategically allowing you to join here only to train, so it does not include working permission. So you are here to train, you're going to be full-time, but we issue you that, you go through the visa process, and we establish your start date based on how long your embassy wait time is. And if any of you online have any questions, you can go and fill out a pre-enrollment form or talk to anybody on our chat team on our website, and they can connect you to a recruiter. I have recruiters that work over the weekend as well. His name is Josh, and he's able to answer any questions. You can also call right into EPIC, and he's at work 9 to 5 Eastern Standard Time. So you can answer questions over the phone too if you prefer that. And we also speak through WhatsApp, so we're happy to go a little bit more and break that down for you if you need us to.
Excellent. Any
So-
others? Online?
Where can I do international training at EPIC?
You can do it at New Smyrna Beach, Florida, and New Smyrna Beach, Florida. Both of our campuses in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, and potentially in about a year or so, we may be able to do it at our Tucson campus. That's still in the process of pending.
And we've got another question. Are the scholarships available for international students?
Unfortunately, the scholarships are dedicated towards U.S. citizens at this moment in time. So sorry.
But check back.
Check back, definitely. Every year we grow the scholarship pool.
Then I've got another one from our guy Parush. Does EPIC hire CFIs that have completed their training outside of EPIC? and even if they have no dual given time. So.
The answer is yes. I'm gonna hand that over to Ray. But the answer is yes, and so long as we see that character and that care and that quality baked into that cookie, okay? The answer is yes, Ray.
Yeah, we do. We love to hire our own Epic students because they know the policies, the procedures, the standardization. But with that said, we understand that there are other great flight schools out there. So yes, we do. A little bit about our hiring process. We, of course, are going to request a resume. We'll do kind of a phone or in-person interview. Decide if you feel like you're the right candidate. We'll then offer you a position, what we call standardization or indoctrination. And it's a job interview at this point in time. You are now going to demonstrate your knowledge and your skills in both the oral lessons, the simulator, and then flying. And if those look good, then we make a job offer. So yeah, we do hire people outside of Epic. We prefer to hire our own because you've invested a lot of time with us at Epic, but that's not always the requirement.
And let me just add one thing further. If you've been a flight instructor for 30 or 40 years like I have, and maybe you just turned 65 and you left an airline, or maybe you're in your 50s and you say, hey, I just want to come back and flight instruct full time as I wind this up, yeah, come and talk to us, right?
Yes,
as I
please.
mentioned earlier, I had built a cadre of experienced instructors that our new hires kind of revolve around. And let me tell you, am I right? It's worked wonderfully. It's worked great. I call them the gray hairs, kind of like me. And they're not going to an airline. They're sticking around at Epic. And so we have that interplay between the two groups. So if you're older and you're interested, if you know what AARP is, talk to Ray. Talk to Ray.
I think that's all of our questions from online.
All right, let's round of applause for the audience. Yay!
Anybody who may have come in after registration, if you can just see me before you leave so that we can get you everything that you registered for your attendance, I'm happy to do that for you.
Our flight instructor, Dylan, one of our other flight instructors, is currently at the campus, so you don't have to wait for us to leave. If you want to head over there, he's already there. You can catch us in passing as well, but we will all be making our way over there.
We get the QR code back up first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, put that back up there.
There you go. Come on up, scan away.